Hi, Olivia and Emerson. I know you guys are stuck at home right now, so I thought you might enjoy trying some art techniques. I'm including all the stuff you need to make an abstract watercolor picture. So this is one that I did. It was just an experiment to try different things, not trying to make anything specific, just trying some different watercolor techniques. And I put everything you need in the box to be able to do this, okay? So let me change my camera. And the watercolors I put in there, they're similar to the ones we use at school, right? They're just Crayola. So don't forget, you know, it works with water. I know you girls both know how to use that, but make sure you get some water in each one. And when you're using your watercolors, make sure you start with the yellow, then the orange, the red, and then moving on to the cool colors. Because otherwise, if you start with these and then go to this, your paints can get really dirty. But at home, it's really easy for you guys. If you want to just go rinse out your brush, you can do that, okay? Or rinse out your water cup. So if your water cup starts getting real dirty, just go and rinse it out, and then you can go back to the yellow. The first thing I'm going to show you is this is a sponge. This is a natural sponge. And to use this, you want to get it a little wet. So I'm just putting it in my cup of water. And you need to make sure that you squeeze it out really good, okay? So you want it to be damp, but you don't want water dripping out of it. So you want to squeeze it out really good, okay? Then I'm going to, I just think it's easier, I'm going to take some of my paint and I'm going to put it here. And if you have like a little paper plate or something like that, you could do that too. Or a plastic lid, if you have like a lid to any containers, you could use that. And then you just dip the sponge in and you can make a little texture. Now you could do this on top of a watercolor painting as well that you've already done to create a different textured color on top, okay? So this is the first one. I know it doesn't show that great on my document camera, but you get the idea. And you can try different colors. So if you wanted to do a little blue, you could do a little blue mixed in with that. If you need to rinse out your sponge, you can. I could do a little blue right on top of that. And it's wet right now, so you kind of have to wait for that to dry to see how it's fully going to work, okay? The next thing I'm going to do is called wet on wet technique. So you would want to have pretty clean water for this. Mine's pretty dirty right now from the green. But what you do is you paint your paper with the water first and get the water really saturated, or the paper really saturated. So get a lot of water on here. And I included a couple pieces of watercolor paper for you so they don't bubble up as much as the ones that we use at school. And then you want to get some really wet paint and put that on. Okay, so this is brushing it on. Okay, you can also get some really wet paint. And just make drops and you'll see how it kind of starts to spread. And I probably could have even used a little more water with this if I put a drop of water onto these. Yeah, Ada's here too. She's gonna help a little bit. Okay, so this is a wet, my water's running out of my paper. This is a wet on wet technique. Get your paper really saturated, okay? All right, now the next one I'm gonna show you, we've done in class. Ada, can you grab that salt? We've done in class, I know Olivia has. Okay, we're going to use some salt. So again, I'm gonna paint my paper with just some water. You can sprinkle some. I don't know with those nails, we'll see. We're gonna get just some water on our paper. And I'm going to paint this, and you want this to be really wet. And once you sprinkle the salt, you don't want to put a ton, right? Because you want to see a texture. And the salt will leave a texture like this because it's absorbing the pigment. Okay, so you don't want to put tons, you just want to sprinkle it around a little bit. So you can do that, Ava. Go ahead and sprinkle it around. Yep, like that. Okay, and then once you put that on there, just leave it. Don't touch it, just leave it and let it dry like that. And when it's totally dry, you can pull it off. Okay, now the next one I'm going to show you. I'll get this ready. This doesn't work as good on the paper that I'm using right now, but it will work pretty good on your paper that I included for you. Okay. Yep, you can use one here. So this is alcohol. All right, so be safe with this. Okay, and right, don't put it in near your mouth or your face or anything. We're just using it as an art tool today. Okay, we know that alcohol, rubbing alcohol, can be used to clean wounds and clean skin before if you have a shot or something like that. Your dad knows all about that, I'm sure. So I'm going to paint. I put water on again, the paper, right? And I'm just rubbing some paint around on here. And I'm rinsing my brush in between each color. You girls know that. And then, like I said, it's going to work a little bit better on the paper that I'm giving you guys. But we'll try it on here. Ada's gonna, we have a little dropper, a pipette, and she's gonna soak it up and just make some drops on there. Yeah, that one looks sweet. Cool. And it kind of looks like little bubbles.
Or like raindrops.
Yeah, or like raindrops. Good idea. Okay, so that's the rubbing alcohol technique, and you can see she's holding a little pipette. So you just pick it up with the pipette, and then you put the pipette into the alcohol like this, and then you just squeeze this end, and it soaks it up. Okay, so it soaks it up inside of there, and then when you're done, you can just squeeze it back in. Okay, all right. The next one we're gonna do is we're gonna use some parchment paper. Okay, your mom maybe uses this, or maybe you guys do with her when she's baking, or dad when he's baking things to line the baking sheet. Just kind of helps keep it clean. We're going to use it for our watercolor technique, and that will give you a texture kind of like this. But the parchment paper will kind of roll up on you, so you have to hold it down for a minute for it to really stick. So I'm putting a little bit of water, not quite as much this time. I'm putting a little bit of water on my paper, so this watercolor will spread really nice. All right, and then you know, you see I'm doing abstracts. I'm not really worrying about how things are coming together. Yeah, I'm doing all cool colors. So then I'm going to take this parchment paper and I'm going to stick it on. And I'm not pushing down every single part, right? I'm leaving some, yeah, I'm just holding it down on the sides. And you can see like here it's not sticking and here it's not sticking. If you have it fully pressed down in all spots, then you don't really end up with the texture, okay? Because it's lifting the pigment off in all the areas. But if you just have it so it's sticking in some spots, then it will just lift up some of the paint and leave that white texture behind. So I might have to come back to this. We have Oreo here too. I might have to come back to this because sometimes it curls up a little bit on us. But we'll keep moving on. So you guys just pause and do what you need to do at home, okay? So at this point, my water is getting like really dirty. So you will probably need to go rinse your water right about now. Okay, the next one we're gonna do is a coffee filter. And the coffee filter, again, just leaves another kind of pretty, almost lacy kind of texture like this. Okay, so I'm going to put some water on my paper. And then put some paint on here. And these Crayola colors are really nice and vibrant, so I like working with these. Okay, and then you can tear this up. You don't need to use the whole coffee filter. So tear up a piece out whatever size you need. And the same thing, you're just gonna stick that on. Okay, All right, now the next one we're gonna do is a, what color should we use, Ada? And blue, we'll paint over it purple. We're gonna do a crayon resist. Okay, so when you paint over your crayons, you need to press pretty hard with the crayon. And when you paint over it, it resists the wax of the crayon. Go ahead with the white. Resists the watercolor. So the watercolor, that means won't stick to it, kind of separates from it. Okay, and so you need to press pretty hard with your crayon. And then, oh, I thought I was going to use purple there, right? Then with your really saturated colors, you just paint over this. Well, the white, I'm thinking maybe Ada didn't push that hard with the crayon. But sometimes if it's not showing up, you can go over it with a little bit of water and it will start to show. So we can try again, Ada, if you press really hard. And then, you know, everybody in class always says to me, oh, my crayon's gonna break. Well, yeah, sometimes that happens. Okay, now if we paint over it, it will. Make sure your watercolor is really, you're using a lot of water when you're doing this. Okay. Yeah, and so you can see this is starting to show through. Okay, so that's another technique. Now, just a couple more I'm going to show you. Ooh, my watercolor is really drippy over here. All right, so now the next one is going to be with a plastic wrap. And again, get your paper really wet. Oreo, go on. Go on. Go play. Get your paper nice and wet. Okay, and put your watercolor on there. And, you know, it's like an experiment. So Ada and I noticed with the crayon, didn't really show up like that great. You could always come on top of it with a paper towel and dab it and pick some of that up. You could even take a paper towel. I don't have a paper towel handy, but you could even take a paper towel and make another design by dabbing some of the water up. Okay. Yeah. Now, when you're using the plastic wrap, you want to crinkle it up a little bit. You don't want it totally flat. And this usually works really well for me, but I have had a couple times where it didn't turn out how I wanted it to. So, like I said, it's kind of like an experiment. Okay. Yes. And then you can see how it's beading up underneath there, right? The watercolor right there. Again, just like the other ones, you just leave that there to dry. And when you're done, and it's all dry, so you gotta let it dry. You might need to let it dry for a couple hours. Yep. You might have to let it dry for a couple hours. It leaves this kind of texture, which is sort of like ice. Looks like an icy texture. Okay. All right. Now, the last one we're gonna do is a tape resist.
Is that how you did that one tree over there?
Yep. So this, oh, I'm going to show you two more actually. So this is a tape resist. Now, sometimes the tape will pull off some of the paper. So you just have to experiment with it. Don't push it down super, super hard. I am giving you painter's tape, but the painter's tape I have at home is really, go ahead, put it right here. It's really, I don't know. It's not supposed to be so strong, but it is. So you put the tape down on the paper, and then we're just going to paint right over it. And then after our painting is dry, we'll pull it right off. All right. So once you have the tape
I
on,
know what it is. It's a weird tree.
like a weird tree.
This is like the salmon.
Once the tape is on, you can just paint right over it. And when our painting is all dry and we pull it off, you will have the white left from the paper underneath. All right, now the last technique I'm going to show you is called dry brush, and you can use this with other kinds of paints too, not just watercolor. But you want to you need to have a paper towel, okay? So normally, you know, everything I've been showing you on here, I'm like, more water, use all this water, right? Well, with the dry brush, my paint is really wet right now, so I actually want to dry some of this, get some paint on there, and dry some of this off. And you might use a thinner paintbrush if you have one. Thanks, Ada. Dry some of this off so that it's not so watery. And then you can use that to make, yeah, more of like a feathery, and that's still got quite a bit of paint actually. So you can just dab it. You never really want to pull on the hairs because you pull them right out. Okay, so just gently dab it. And then you can see the dry brush creates more of this feathery sort of look. So if you were doing fur of an animal or something like that, this would be a good technique to use. Okay, so I hope you have fun. I hope this is something that you enjoy doing for a few hours. And I know we can't see it on here yet because these aren't dry, but when you're done, you'll be able to see all these different kinds of textures on here. Here's the wet on wet with some drops. You could even try and maybe use your pipette too if you wanted to do, after the alcohol, if you wanted to try and do some wet on wet.
Or you could put some alcohol in.
You could try and do that as well, okay? So try some different things and just have fun with it. And everything you need is in the box, okay? All right, Ada, let's say bye so they can see us. Bye. Miss you guys.